What's up, guys? Welcome to the Off Grid podcast. I'm in a woodland in the South Downs National Park, and it's such a cool setup. I'm so excited to do this one. It's a solo episode, if you haven't guessed. It's just me here in this woodland. A little bit paranoid. I'm always curious that walkers are just going to come by and be like, what the hell are you doing? I would hate to look like any sort of influencer. But so far, so good. And in this episode, there's one thing that I really want to talk about, which is friendships and relationships, because I know that a lot of young people, young adults in particular, at the moment are feeling really lonely. So I thought I'd do an off grid take on that with how the outdoors can really help relationships. Because for me, almost all of my closest relationships have been built in the outdoors. And I feel like nature is a huge part and somewhat disregarded part of what brings us true connection with each other as people. Basically, I've got these notes here, and I have these notes to make sure that I'm really succinct and don't blab on too much. So every now and then I will be glancing my eyes at this paper because I don't just want to chat bollocks for nonstop. I want to keep it succinct. So I've pubbed, I've been on nights out, I've been hanging out with friends throughout university and doing all that sort of stuff, but nothing beats the outdoors with people that you really enjoy the company of, particularly when it comes to building bonds. So I've got three ways that I myself have bonded with people into the outdoors that you guys can do yourself. The first is moving my social life to the mornings. Second is micro adventures. And the third is going for a walk. So first up is moving my social life to the mornings. This has massively changed my lifestyle. And basically what was happening was I was getting drunk, meeting up with mates, having a few drinks, and it was always late nights. And over time, it was just tiring. Like it had this ripple effect on the rest of my week. So I started thinking how I could change my social life to kind of be more optimized for energy and actually being up for it rather than yawning myself to my next pint in a pub. And it's only when I realised that socialising with mates in the mornings, that's when I realised that actually I've been drunk most of the time when I meet up with my friends. So what I started doing was I started meeting up with friends before work. And what that meant was we usually met up sober, and we also were meeting up to exercise and do these great things that you otherwise probably wouldn't be bothered to do in the darkness of nighttime. So one example I did was I said to a friend, hey, let's meet up at 5 a.m. in the morning, come to my place and we'll go on a run together before work. And this guy is just up for anything. So he was like, okay, sweet, let's do it. He sets his alarm at 4:30 a.m., drives to my place. We set off for a run all the way through the South Downs. We did like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour run, just kept going all the way, no phones, just chatted the whole time. And it was only at the end of that run that he let me know that on his watch, it told him that we had run a half marathon and that he had never actually run that distance before, which is just amazing because you realize that whilst chatting away and whilst having a really good time, you realize that things like metrics and tracking your pace and things like that, they just go out the window because it's not about that anymore. It's about connecting with your friend and having a great time. And yeah, we just ended up starting our days and going into work feeling like Superman. Like you have this incredible sense of power when you go into your day knowing that you've absolutely smashed it with a half marathon in the morning. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go and do a half marathon. It might be a 5K or whatever it is with your friend, but just feeling like you've started the day with a win is an incredible feeling. And, compare that to waking up in the morning a little bit hungover, a little bit groggy. You start to think like actually this ripple effect of meeting up with your mates, having a great energy first thing in the morning, that lasts throughout your whole day, whole week, month, year, and just keeps going. So we both set our alarms and got up to go and do that thing, which also created this sense of social dependency. You don't want to let your mate down by not turning up. And we didn't have earphones either, so there's no technology involved in it. And what that meant was you just end up really getting to know each other and you go through a bit of hardship together. That's another really important thing, is realizing that you're able to go through something like that together. And it's just a tiny hardship. It's not awful. It's just a bit of friction where you have to create some sort of sense of reliance on each other to get through it. And that might just be having good energy, and having a good chat with them along the way. But if you think about how our social life is designed at the moment, it's all around comfort, whether we're getting food made for us or we're going to go and watch entertainment, which has all been done for us. Everything becomes really easy. Whereas I've always found being in the outdoors, there is always this natural sense of friction, whether it's like physical endurance or mental toughness, doing something that's hard, like a longer run or whatever it is. And what that ultimately means is you end up having that shared experience together. So I'd say the biggest takeaway is that moving my social life to the mornings has really actually revealed which mates are willing to set an alarm to go and see you, rather than being this super convenient thing where they've done work and you're in the area, so it's easy to meet up with them. You're actually saying, do you want to go and do this relatively hard thing together? Do you want to set your alarm for it, maybe lose out on a bit of sleep? And do you want to go and do this awesome thing where we can go and tackle this mini challenge together and go for it at 5 a.m. in the morning? And if you're really into that and that's something that you do on your own anyways, then first of all, you can find people who are already on your level, in terms of your mindset and what you want to be doing with your days. But second of all, you also find those friends of yours that are actually genuinely up for coming to see you because they bothered to set their alarm and go and do that awesome thing together. So yeah, that was a big takeaway for me. A lot more quality relationships as a result of it. And also just creating freaking awesome memories where you'd be like, wow, do you remember that time you accidentally run a half marathon before work? And yeah, it's just a great thing to be able to laugh about and chat about when you are drinking in the pub or when you are going on a night out together. You've got that versatility to your friendship. Second up is micro adventures. Now, if you haven't heard of micro adventures, they're essentially adventures distilled into a really finite period of time, where it's usually maybe just one night or it could even be a day. They're usually things that are local, so something on your doorstep where accessibility is at its absolute highest. But rather than just going on a walk or a run that you already know, you create an adventure out of that experience. So there's some sense of unfamiliarity, some sort of novel factor that would make it an adventure. Now, I first got into micro adventures when I realized that I've been dossing about at uni for 3 years. And suddenly you get to a point in life where it's just bloody busy. And it's really hard, particularly when you're meeting up with friends, to find a time where all of you can meet up and go on this adventure together. So it was right when I turned like probably 23, 24 after uni, and all your mates get darted around England and the UK, and it's just really hard logistically to go and do an adventure. This is exactly where micro adventures come in and become like a really great facet of keeping an adventurous life and that sense of living alive, whilst not having to book off annual leave or make a massive plan for a massive adventure. This was all about finding a way that it wasn't demanding on our time, but that's not the only thing that makes micro adventures hugely accessible. They've got the lowest barriers to entry because essentially all you would need is a tent. I mean, you don't even need a sleeping bag. Like if you're going for an overnight micro adventure, there have been times where I haven't brought a sleeping bag because it's been in summertime, or even I have brought a sleeping bag, but I was so underprepared that it got soaking wet and couldn't end up using it. That's actually happened before and never happened again. Definitely learnt my lesson. But yeah, the barriers to entry are just so low. So what that enables you to do is to just get out the door, get in the car, or just walk to wherever it is you need to go, and set off and go kick it. And if you think about it, if you don't have a tent or something like that, they are actually cheaper than a night out. So if you're already thinking to yourself, oh, I'm not able to afford something like that, you can literally go on Amazon, buy an Amazon Basics tent for like 30 quid. I've done it before. I've trekked around Mallorca with an Amazon Basic tent for £25. It went through a storm on the side of a mountain. It was horrendous. We had to like lock the whole thing down with massive rocks. But it's doable, particularly when you look at England and the UK. Like, it's never going to be too bad unless you're in Scotland or something like that. But we're in the summer season now. Get yourself a tent, get yourself ready, and get some friends together to be open to this idea of a micro adventure. Now, an example of this is I met a friend at about 4 p.m. on a Sunday because we were both super busy on the weekend. Then we walked 3 miles to a hill point, set up camp in this really discreet spot, because camping in England, it's illegal but culturally accepted so long as you respect the countryside and leave no trace and do like sunset to sunrise, setting up and taking down the tent. So we're all set up at about 7 o'clock, had a great chat, and then we were back to work by 9 a.m. on the Monday morning. Now, that might sound like there's not enough time to really enjoy yourself, but what I love is you make the most of the weekend. Most people start to wind down towards the end of their Sunday. So you just go out there and you do another great thing and make the most of that whole weekend. So it really extends it out. But also, in a time where you feel quite probably lethargic from the week that's happened, there's no tech, there's no TV to watch or anything like that. And what that means is you and your friend are in solitude and you are resigned to conversation. That's basically the only thing that you guys can do, which is great, because what that means is past the conversation that you have catching up over the first 2 or 3 hours, then starts the real conversation, the conversation that begins when you have nothing else to talk about. And that's what micro adventures are so good for. They create a sense of adventurous life, and you can work that around your own lifestyle, whether you're looking after kids, you've got work in the morning, or it's just harder to arrange to meet up with your friends. So yeah, definitely rate micro adventures. And just one night with no phones, you just get proper conversation where, there's ultimately those rare moments where you actually get to chat with a friend and there isn't any tech around. So I'd say that the biggest takeaway is that being in wild camping, putting yourself in that sort of environment of a micro adventure, you're doing teamwork, you're navigating with this person, you're having to work with them and be a partner with them. And that's super rare to find in civilized society these days, where we have those relationships with our mates. So that was the best thing about a micro adventure in my own experience, is that you end up developing a stronger bond with that person just because you have to work with them on a level that otherwise you wouldn't in society. So yeah, discomfort really does build bonding. And I think that's maybe a big takeaway from a micro adventure, is that by looking for the adventure, having a bit of friction and discomfort, it actually builds that bonding experience with you guys, and it results in a much stronger relationship overall. Now, third up is going for a walk. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's not exactly out of Einstein's diary. It's not the greatest idea that anyone's come up with. But I really feel like going for a walk is so underrated, and particularly the science unknown as to what it can do to form a connection with someone else. It's been shown that having a sense of movement but also not maintaining eye contact with someone else. It kind of informalizes the whole experience of the conversation. And that opens up a load of opportunity to be able to chat with someone and really open up with them on a level that is building connection with that person. A great example is this guy called Harry Stebbings. He's an entrepreneur here in England, and he's a podcast host and also a founder of a venture capital company called 20VC. And in the mornings, he will meet up with his clients, go for a walk in a park, because what he's doing is he's trying to understand who that founder is. And before he'll invest in a company, he wants to spend 2, 3, 4 hours just walking with the founder and talking to them about them and their life. And that's how he really gets to know that person and understand if he wants to invest in them. So going for a walk, yeah, it's amazing. It's obviously so accessible, so easy to do, and you can do it in all forms of relationships. I think one thing that I've absolutely loved about pursuing businesses and entrepreneurship in the outdoor industry is that it means that I get to do loads of great things in the outdoors. Like, I'm in a woodland right now filming this podcast, and I wouldn't be doing it if this podcast was about tech or something like that. So I think using the outdoors, going for walks in different ways in all facets of your life, not just friendships and social arrangements, but any human interaction, is going to massively benefit whatever it is you're doing, whether that's in business or going for a walk with your partner and your relationship, or meeting up with friends that you haven't seen in a while, or even just like a daily thing to do on your own and connect with yourself. Going for a walk is freaking amazing. Now, if you do want to make it more of an adventure, one great thing you can do is not have any phones involved and then only ever take paths that you haven't walked on before. And what this does is it takes your reliance on tech for navigation all the way out the window. And it means that you have basically got to find your way back to wherever you've parked your car, whatever your start point was. Now, that probably means you're going to end up lost at some point, which I think is great. Like, people always see getting lost as like a bad thing because they're on like a tight schedule, or basically they're going to be late for the next thing that they're doing. But if you allow yourself the time to be lost, it's very rare that anyone these days is ever lost. And it's something that as a species, we used to be lost the whole time. So it makes for a great adventure if you just chuck the tech away, don't look at any maps or anything like that, and explore a place, truly explore a place, and allow yourself to feel comfortable with the feelings that come up when you do feel lost. What that does for me is build a really great relationship with someone, because you're basically trying to work out a way to get back to the known path, and you're in that sense of unknown together. So again, that's something that you very rarely find in day-to-day life. And what that does is creates this sense of dependence on each other, but also skills, like what time did you set off? Where was the sun at that point? And being able to use these sorts of sense of natural navigation to help you get back to where you were. If you're interested in natural navigation, I spoke to Tristan Gooley in a previous podcast, and he is the natural navigator. So he tells you everything you need to know about how to use a natural world to find out where you are. And that's something I've been massively interested in since I had that conversation with him. So yeah, going for a walk, it's as simple as that. And it also just means you have a great story. You know, you create this shared experience with someone where you've got like a really great conversation going on. You're doing something different. It's not just your usual meeting up at a pub or going for food. There's no money involved. So the access to do it basically means that everyone can say yes. And you're just having a sense of conversation that otherwise you totally wouldn't otherwise. Now, I think these three things all have two things in common. And I'd say that they're probably themes that I'd imagine you've picked up on throughout this episode. And the first is the elimination of tech. It's a massive barrier that gets in the way of human connection. I think the outdoors is so great because it's almost the antithesis to tech. You just got to get rid of it. There's no signal or anything like that. And that's great. That's exactly what it's all about. I also feel like if someone was to check their phone, it's usually an unconscious behavior where they just by default will check their phone if they're on their own or something like that, or if you're at the pub. Which I think if you're in a social setting like that in the indoors, it will probably be seen as like a normal behavior. But when you're at a beautiful viewpoint or you're covered in mud and it's raining, it would seem like a really odd behavior to then whip out your phone and scroll TikTok. So I think the outdoors is just great at making those sort of unconscious, normalized behaviors look really weird. Second of all, is how these adventures create stories. I love the outdoors so much because it's unpredictable. You don't really know what's going to happen to the weather. You don't know if you're going to get lost. And what that does is it allows for like a sense of friction, discomfort, which builds a stronger relationship with that person. And you can really just understand what that person's all about. Like, who are they when they're freaking out and conditions aren't ideal? And also creating this sense of retrospective fun, where it might be bad in the moment, but then you've got a great story and you'll share that memory together for a really long time. And I think that's something that's really special, and that's something that you can really cherish. Now, I want to finish this episode with a challenge. It's a challenge for you. And what I want you to do is to text a friend, put in a date and a time. It might just be 2 hours in the morning, whatever it is. It might be walking, running, micro adventure, whatever. Text a mate, do it now, and get that thing in the books for you guys to go and do something awesome together. If you don't have friends, don't worry. There's so many other people listening to this who don't have mates, and we've all been at points in our life where our social circles take a massive dip. So what you can do is go on to things like Facebook, where they've got these amazing communities with people just like you who are looking to meet like-minded people. There's so many hiking, trekking, expedition Facebook groups that you can join and sign up to these free events and expeditions all around the world. Now, I hope this episode has been a massive help for all of you guys. It's been really cool to do it in a woodland, and thank you for bearing with me. I know that sometimes I've got to check my notes because the last thing I want to do is ramble on and waste anyone's time. So I hope that all of this content is providing value for you guys. And if there's one favor that I can ask, it's just to put in the comments whether these are of value for you and what you would want to see from future episodes. That way I can keep producing episodes and content that's literally tailored to you rock stars as my listeners. All right. Thanks a lot. Cheers, guys. See ya.